Have you ever stood on a vast open plain as the sun begins to set, watching your shadows stretch and grow long? It's a peaceful sight, isn't it? But on the Mongolian steppe, there's an old saying, a piece of folklore whispered from generation to generation. You should never, ever count the shadows at sunset. Why? Because sometimes you'll find one too many. And when the last sliver of sun dips below the horizon, plunging the world into twilight, that extra shadow doesn't disappear with the rest. This isn't just a campfire story told to spook children. It's a warning rooted in the very soul of the steppe, a land of endless sky, whispering winds, and ancient spirits. The nomads who live here, people who understand the land's rhythms better than anyone, treat this rule with the utmost seriousness. They know that the boundary between our world and another becomes thin at dusk, especially in a place so vast and untouched. My name is Alton, and I grew up hearing these stories from my grandmother. She was a woman whose face was a roadmap of sun and wind, her eyes holding the wisdom of 1,000 years. She'd sit by the fire in our ger, the air thick with the smell of burning dung and milky tea, and tell me about the sukin, the shadow walkers. She said they are not ghosts of the dead, nor are they demons in the way we might understand them. They are echoes, leftover things from a time before time, formless and hungry, drawn to the life and warmth of the living. They are most active during the liminal hours, the moments between day and night, when the world holds its breath. Sunset is their favorite time. As the sun bleeds across the sky, painting it in shades of orange and purple, the sukin stir. They rise from the earth not as solid beings, but as patches of deeper darkness, indistinguishable from a normal shadow cast by a rock, a horse, or a person. They mimic, they copy, they wait. This is why you must not count. To count them is to acknowledge them. To single one out is to give it focus, to give it a sliver of your attention, your energy, and that's all it needs. It's like noticing a single face in a massive blurry crowd. Suddenly, that face becomes clear. It has your attention. My grandfather, a man of few words and immense strength, learned this the hard way. He was a young man then, proud and a little reckless. He thought the stories were just that, stories. One evening, he was herding his sheep back to the camp, the sun setting behind the distant hills. He was with 3 other shepherds. Feeling mischievous, he turned to his friends and joked, "Let's see if the old tales are true." He started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. My shadow, yours, his, and his. He paused. Then he pointed towards a small rocky outcrop. And look, 5. There, attached to the side of a large boulder, was a long, thin shadow that didn't seem to have a source. It was too slender to be from the rock itself. His friends grew uneasy, telling him to stop, to turn away and head for the ger. But my grandfather, emboldened by his own skepticism, just laughed. He kept watching it. He described it to my grandmother later as a hole in the light. As the sun vanished, the other 4 shadows melted into the growing darkness. But the 5th one, it remained. It didn't fade. It detached itself from the rock and seemed to deepen, becoming a patch of absolute black against the twilight blue grass. Then it moved. Not like a living creature, not with legs or a body. It flowed, like ink spilled on a map, stretching and contracting. It started moving towards them. The other shepherds, terrified, ran for the safety of the campfires, shouting for him to follow. But my grandfather was frozen, mesmerized by the unnatural sight. The shadow flowed over the ground, silent and swift. He said the air grew cold around it, a bone-deep chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. The chirping of the crickets stopped. The wind died. There was only an unnerving silence as this piece of mobile nothingness closed the distance. He finally broke from his trance when it was just a few dozen feet away. He turned and ran, his heart hammering against his ribs. He didn't dare look back. He could feel it, though. He described it as a feeling of being watched not by eyes, but by an emptiness, a void that wanted to consume his warmth, his life, his very presence. He made it back to the camp, bursting into the circle of firelight, gasping for breath. The elders knew immediately what had happened. They didn't scold him. The terror in his eyes was punishment enough. The camp's shaman performed a ritual, cleansing him with smoke from burning juniper and chanting ancient prayers to reinforce the barrier between the living and the sukin. For weeks, my grandfather felt its presence. He did catch glimpses of it from the corner of his eye, a flicker of impossible darkness in the bright noon sun, an extra-long shadow trailing him in the firelight. He never felt truly alone. The sukin, he had acknowledged, had latched onto him, a persistent, silent observer. It couldn't cross into the light of the fire or the sacred space of the ger, but it waited, always waiting at the edge. Over time, with the help of the shaman and his own renewed respect for the old ways, the feeling faded. The shadow appeared less and less until one day it was gone. But the experience changed him forever. He was never reckless again. He never stayed out after sunset unless absolutely necessary, and he taught his children and his children's children to respect the twilight. To hurry home, to gather by the fire, and to never ever count the shadows. So what are these shadow walkers? The lore is fragmented, pieced together from whispers and warnings. Some say they are the shadows of beings from a world that existed before ours, a world of different physics and different light. When their world ended, their shadows were left behind, untethered and lost. Others believe they are manifestations of the steppe itself. The land is so ancient, so immense, that it has its own consciousness. The sukin are its antibodies, its way of dealing with things that don't belong, or perhaps its way of reminding humans of their small place in a much larger and much older cosmos. A fascinating and chilling aspect of the legend is how they interact with us. They don't attack in a physical sense. They don't have claws or teeth. Their influence is more insidious. They drain you. People who have had prolonged contact with a sukin report feeling a constant low-level fatigue, a lack of joy, a slow fading of their own inner light. It's as if the shadow is feeding on their vitality, their spirit. They become listless, their laughter quiet, their eyes dull. They become a shadow of their former selves, quite literally. The nomads have ways to protect themselves. Fire is the ultimate shield. The sukin cannot stand light and warmth. This is why the hearth is the sacred center of every Mongolian home. They also use mirrors, believing that a shadow, being a reflection of a physical object, becomes confused and repelled by an actual reflection. Small polished pieces of metal or mirrors are often worn as charms. And of course, the most important rule is avoidance and ignorance. Don't look for them. Don't talk about them after dark. Don't challenge them, and never, ever count them. To live on the steppe is to live in a delicate balance with forces we don't understand, and that balance is maintained through respect. Think about it. Our own science tells us that 95% of the universe is made of dark matter and dark energy, stuff we can't see or comprehend. We live our lives in a tiny illuminated 5%. Who's to say what exists in that overwhelming darkness? Perhaps the old stories, born from millennia of watching the sky and the land, know more than we give them credit for. So the next time you find yourself watching a sunset, as your shadow stretches out before you, enjoy the beauty of the moment. But if you're ever on a wide open plain, and you get that strange, sudden urge to count the dark shapes on the ground, resist it. Just turn towards the warmth of home and walk into the light. Don't look back. You never know what you might see if you do, or worse, what you might let see you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the shadows of the steppe, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories from the unseen world. Stay curious and stay safe.